From 1926, film started to get louder. Warner Brothers invested in the Vitaphone technology, or sound on disc, and used it to create a successfully synchronized musical score to Don Juan, starring John Barrymore. The move towards aligning sound with the picture was made. Warner followed up this success with the release of 1927's The Jazz Singer, widely regarded as the first talkie, but more accurately it was the first feature-length commercial production that featured synchronized dialogue, musical score, and effects. In fact, only a few scenes of The Jazz Singer contained synchronized spoken word, roughly around 25% of the actual film. To further stake their place in the history of cinema, Warner Brothers went on to create the first all-dialogue picture with the gangster film, Lights of New York, in 1928. The transition to sound was initially unwieldy, with the new technology requiring a learning curve for crews. The early movie cameras were bulky behemoths and needed soundproofed housing to accommodate them, while the first microphones impeded the movement of actors, making them self-conscious. As a consequence, many early talkies look awkward and enervated. Indeed, many actors lost their profession due to the unsuitability of their voices for synchronized recording. One silent movie star who survived the transition from silent to talking pictures, Gloria Swanson, memorably captured the sense of uncertainty over filmmaking's new dawn with her performance as Norma Desmond in Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. Desmond is a former silent movie star who cannot accept the sweeping changes that are rendering the only world she knows and loves mysterious, incomprehensible, and strange. That loss of identity brought about by the advent of the talkies acts as a reminder to us modern audiences and filmmakers that to dispense with the past entirely can produce a hollowness in our responses to the making and appreciating of art, as much as change needs to be understood and assimilated into practice. This, however, was something the film industry understood. The transition to talkies was not an obliteration of silence. The major studios released two versions of their motion pictures throughout the 1930s. One a silent version, sometimes with sound effects, and one with sound, usually dialogue. Such an example was 1930's All Quiet on the Western Front, and the 30s effectively bridged the chasm between an established practice and new methods of production that would expand cinema's horizons. But the talkies, even after the transition was complete and sound-synchronized motion pictures were accepted as the norm, could not, and indeed did not, wish to eradicate the influence of silence on their evolution. Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly saw the expressiveness held within silence, behind the joy of sound, as they created extravagant musical numbers built around arresting imagery and affectionately recalled the comedy routines of the likes of Chaplin, Keaton, and Lloyd in Singin' in the Rain. At the centre of all great movie making since cinema began, silence resides in the image, providing the pause where words, ideas, and even sound itself can grow from. A good filmmaker knows that silence often speaks louder than words. The interchange of silence and sound between the westerns The Great Train Robbery in 1903 and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford in 2007 provide the most illuminating example of how silent film continues to shape movies. Conceptually, The Great Train Robbery is a noisy silent. It's all fast action, violence, gunslinging, and chase scenes. There is no soundtrack, but you can hear the story, so to speak. The images are concise, they are evocative of the story and genre being presented. Conversely, Jesse James is a silent talkie. The characters speak and move among landscapes and interiors that are still. Stillness is a key theme in the film. Using narration in Jesse James, a silent movie device introduced in the form of intertitles to punctuate the action, the filmmakers punctuate the image, allowing it to sit as an entity in itself. This is a film that uses the pause to great effect. Silence creates the impression violence haunts the lives of James and his followers, and it is no coincidence you become aware of every sound effect employed. The silence is disturbed when change threatens the gang. In both films, silence creates the platform for the movie to engage with us. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford sets its words and sounds against a quiet backdrop, and the Great Train Robbery lets the stimulus of anticipated sound feed the silent image. Persistence of motion is present in both, working from opposite directions to the same end, that being the tragedy of the outlaw. How to represent the moon landing after its many representations on film, including the filming of the landing itself? How can this be made as awesome as it was without becoming redundant? Damien Chazelle's answer to this in First Man was the reverence silence can hold. The simplicity of the silence in space is the truth of the image he creates, as Neil Armstrong becomes the first man to step foot on the moon. The event is so universal, so staggering, so remarkable, we must fall into step with Armstrong in wondrous quiet. The image takes over here and speaks to us without excess. It is enough. Much as Méliès captured the curiosity and wonder of space exploration, long before Armstrong made his historic journey, Chazelle has shown the same sense of wonder that cannot be expressed in words, or an increase in volume. Silence nonetheless craved sound from the first presentations of Dixon and Edison's film experiments with the kinetoscope and kinetograph. And, while the film industry initially treated sound with some skepticism, this is not something we need worry about today. We can see how sound enlivens what the screen is showing us. But to make the translation of an idea work within us comes from a still picture deep inside, while blockbusters, for example, may impress us with their brash use of sound. Those that know when to whisper will reach us most directly. Hollywood has even made direct tribute to the establishment of movie narrative through silence, with the production of The Artist in 2011. Michel Hazanavicius's picture shows that the silent film can still entertain and delight us, as well as warning us of not taking breath to reflect on and absorb the world around us. As Jean Dujardin's character discovers a glass can make an impact sound on his dresser, it is not a moment of wonder and celebration. Rather, it precipitates a descent into paranoia and fear, until the falling of a leaf becomes deafening. Sound intrudes on the silence. It's disturbing, and it even hurts. Sound is not something to be used as mere noise, an unrelenting assault on our senses. If this is the case, like Dujardin, we will only recoil from the image, rather than reflect on it. To be involved in the persistence of motion, we must be ready to move forward from an inward position. The Artist is more than an homage to a lost era. It's the reminder to us all, as film lovers, that sound's power and beauty can only be harnessed when silence informs it.